The key with Gatorade, why it's been so helpful, is they didn't get greedy. See, if you have heavy salt water and you're exercising, that doesn't work. It actually takes salt away from you. If you don't give it enough, it doesn't really do anything. And the interesting thing, and the reason why Gatorade works so well, the physiology is interesting. There is something called a sodium-potassium pump. So if you have sodium, you can actually pump. The sodium actually acts like a pump, and it actually forces the blood sugar from like the outside into your body. So that's why Gatorade works so well, especially if you're doing high intensity type stuff. It can work very well. For most people under an hour, you don't need it, but if you're doing long distance stuff, it works well because they got it just right. And Gatorade comes from the University of Florida, being the mascot, the Gators, so Gatorade. And I like it because they didn't get greedy. It's like not too much until just right. Now they have fancy marketing and you see all that stuff, but really it's a very simple thing to make. In general, what we recommend is making your own electrolyte solution without the sugar, since we're not exercising that much. But especially if you're going to be doing timed eating, where you're doing prolonged fasting, we're talking about 36, 48, 72-hour fast, then it's highly recommended that you learn how to make basically a saltwater solution. And so this is one of the top people we kind of recommend that you can follow on YouTube. And snakes don't eat that often, so they came up with this thing called the snake diet, because snakes don't eat that often. So they encourage very limited food windows, like only one meal a day, maybe 6 days a week, and one 48-hour fast a week. That's not an unusual sort of thing. That's what I've sort of been following. And what they do, they call it snake juice. It's basically just salt water. So you could come up with, in a liter of water, you could put a half a teaspoon of sodium potassium, half a teaspoon of potassium chloride, and so it's sodium chloride and potassium chloride. And basically you make your own salt drink, and then this works well if you're doing prolonged fasting. For myself, like I do spin, high intensity spinning, and I sweat a lot. It's a really good thing to do if you want to sort of have a way to get high intensity exercise. But interestingly, I did my blood test. I was drinking water, did my blood test after, and my sodium was low, was below the normal. So now when I do spin, I always have salt, both sodium and potassium, in my water to do the class, and you just feel so much better. And in fact, there's a lot of different combinations of that, but I just think if you're going to be doing any fasting, I encourage you to learn how to make some saltwater drinks, so we can help you with that. So how do you know if you're dehydrated? There's a couple of practical ways and then some more exact ways. But basically, you look at your urine. If it's really clear, you're probably pretty well hydrated. If it gets darker, you're probably pretty dehydrated. You have to understand, though, if you're taking a lot of vitamins, as my professor in med school told us, the United States has the most expensive urine in the world because they take all these vitamins and they pee it out. And if you take a lot of vitamins, it'll change the color of your urine. So if you're not on vitamins, then this one works relatively well. And I know when I go backpacking and things, you do look at that and you can see, especially if you haven't had water, that your urine gets very, very, very dark. And it's not good for your kidneys to be dehydrated. It's not good for a lot of things to be dehydrated. The other thing, if you want to get a little more exact, is to actually, you can get these urine sticks. They're very inexpensive at Walmart. And you can actually look at what's called your specific gravity. And so that can tell you exactly what you are. 1.000 is water, and then anything else, and the most concentrated it gets is 1.030. So I'll show people what their specific gravities are on their urine tests and show them where they need to improve their water. So this is a more exact way than just looking at the color, because these will change. Color depends on what specific gravity you're at. But the most exact is when we take blood tests. So this is what we'll do in like dialysis. I'll do this on wellness labs, and we'll look at your BUN to creatinine. So never call it the BUN, doctors get really irritated. It's the BUN, but that stands for blood urea nitrogen. So it's a product that we make from protein metabolism, and that should be pretty low, like usually like single digits, like 7. It goes up to like 30. But if you're not drinking enough water, your BUN will be very high. Now, if you have problems with your kidneys specifically, then the creatinine will be high. So you'll see this ratio. And so I have a lot of people who have poor kidney function because it's a kind of a combination between your BUN divided by your creatinine. But if you can, or actually not exactly that, but along those lines, the bottom line is the lower your BUN is, the more your kidney function works better. So if I have people, and this happens all the time, they'll actually be in renal failure. I get them to drink and they come out of renal failure. So if you have any questions, it's good to get even serial BUNs. I have one guy, he takes it every week and it sends it to me, and we do it by computer, and we just kind of nudge him up to get enough water in him, because most people don't realize how much water they need. So if you just wanted to give an idea to start with, I try to get the guys to drink about a gallon of water a day, and the women close to 100. So 125 ounces of water, and for women, say 100 ounces of water. And then measure. I mean, that's just a good way to start and see. But that's way more than most people seem to get in. But what this does is really improves your mitochondrial function. And your mitochondria is where you get your energy. So if you want more energy, drink more water. Yes, you'll be peeing more, but you're actually sort of cleaning everything out. And this is how we're sort of designed to be. And then salt is a study unto itself. You know, we used to have the Morton salt, which was the little, a blue can, and then you can have the other one, which is salt substitute. But there's sort of, that's gone out of favor because it has, the reason it's so nice and smooth and white is it's been bleached, as well as it has emollients to keep it from sticking together. And we did put iodine in it, so that's been a good thing for that. It's not probably the best salt. It doesn't have magnesium. It doesn't have other salts in it. So you've seen a lot of like this Himalayan pink salt. There's just a lot of options out there for you. The interesting thing is that since a lot of people have cut back on salt, that means they've also cut back on iodine. That's why you see so many thyroid type problems. So that's why it's important for you, if you have iodine problems, to look at your iodine level, consider getting iodine in a better way. And actually it sounds weird, but actually seaweed is probably one of the best ways to do it. So a little bit of sushi with a lot of oil is actually quite good. But understand that I think learning about salt, I use a ton of this Himalayan pink sea salt. It comes from actually Afghanistan, where they have these sort of ancient places to get it. So if you really want to learn about salt, it's pretty fascinating, and I think you should figure out what is your best salt for it. And then one thing you might think about doing, starting tomorrow, is first thing in the morning, water, especially when it's been cold, is heat up water and drink a little bit of a salt solution. This is the first thing I do in the morning, so I'll just put some salt in a cup, and I'll heat up water for both coffee and my salt and salt water drink, and that's the first thing I drink in the morning. And it's amazing how well it makes you feel, because all night you've been basically dehydrated, you haven't drank all night. And when you do this in the morning, it really is a nice way to hyperhydrate you. So it is something to think about. Yes?
How much do you put in?
Again, I just kind of sprinkle it in. I don't really have a mixture for that. I don't put, just look at it. If it's too much, cut back. If it's not enough, put it in. But this is very inexact because you're going to be drinking a lot of stuff. I usually have this with a cup of coffee before I go to spin.
Is there a certain type, certain brand of water or type of water?
Great question. I didn't, I'll go on that at the end. In general, you want to get non-fluoridated water. So that is something I'm going to ask your guys' help on. But in general, if you can get non-fluoridated spring water, that's considered to be the best. So as we talked with Peter Drucker, I use this a bunch of times all through the day. What gets measured gets managed. So I think he was a big financial guy. But I do think the more you can measure, like anything like grams of carbohydrates or grams of proteins or your weight or water, anything like that is how you really get better and kind of science it up. Now I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about stuff that not many know about, is how water, you actually get energy from the water. And this gets very, very deep, but I just want to just introduce you to the concept. And as I mentioned last time, that if you look at chlorophyll, which gets all of its energy from the sun, it doesn't look that much different, except for the magnesium, from our red blood cells. So there is some thought, and if you look at the chemistry, we always talk about food being the only energy that we get. But it doesn't, when you do all the chemical equation, it doesn't really explain how much energy we use and where we get it from. And there really is some thought that, that our red blood cells are actually to bring energy to our body, but actually from light we get exposed to. One of the problems of fluoride is it blocks how much energy we get. So I have so many people that complain of fatigue and not having enough energy, and a lot of it can be from their light environment and some of the stuff that they're taking in. Interestingly, fluoride is to prevent tooth decay, and tooth decay is because of sugar. So we never had tooth decay until the Egyptians invented wheat in 10,000 years ago. So when you do Paleolithic stuff, you can know how old something is by does that person have tooth decay or not, because you just never had it before they invented wheat. So the other thing we talked a little bit about is how temperature affects our water, and essentially this is why we're kind of still around given everything that's going on. Think of a pond like when it's like this where it's cold and freezing. When water freezes, it expands, which gets less dense, and it flows to the top. That's why you never see a lake totally freeze unless it's a small lake. That the top will get cold, but the bottom will stay water because basically that insulates it. And so water expands when it freezes, but it also then condenses when it heats up. So if you put, this is a fun little chemistry experiment you do like in middle school, where you'll take a cup and you'll say, okay, here's where the water is. You'll put ice in it, and then once it melts, you ask the students, is it going to go down or up or stay the same? And it actually stays the same. And that's because when ice melts and when it heats, it actually shrinks down in size.